7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tomes and Tunes. I am your host, Arielle Silver, and I am so happy to have this week's guest on to talk about books and swap a song. The guest this week is longtime friend, and I just fangirl about her music, so super excited. Klim, all the way from Nashville, right here on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Here we go, Kate. Come on in. Hello. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Last time I saw you, we were in New Orleans.
Oh, I was going to say last time I saw you, we were in Boston, but you win with accuracy.
Boop, boop.
We were in New Orleans at Folk Alliance, which is right before no one would see anyone again for a long time.
I know. Crazy. One big hurrah, giant party in New Orleans at a hotel with lots of folkies.
Which seems crazy now. We're like, what, a group of people together? How dangerous.
I know. So what has it been like? Are you right in Nashville?
I am. My address is technically Nashville proper. I'm in East Nashville, like every other Nashville songwriter you probably know.
And so what is life like in East Nashville right now?
You know, what is life like in East Nashville? It's good. Tennessee's interesting. This is where it'd be interesting to talk about how different it is. I imagine California is really different. We've got a mixed bag of precautions people are taking. So there are some people who are just living life as normal. We're not quite life as normal. But there's some patio dining happening, and I know I have friends all around here, but I'm not really seeing them. So the East Nashville I'm seeing is still primarily through like FaceTime and drive-thrus.
And how has your life changed this year?
Oh, how has my life changed? I have 2 kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they're changing every day. So it changes a lot. And then there's just like a major, on top of COVID, a major life transition family relationship thing, which I won't spoil the sad song for the end, but is real, and I won't go into the details, but it'll probably kind of color everything I say. It'll definitely be discussed when we talk about what books I'm reading. They're all about life transitions and new beginnings and things like that.
Yeah. Were your kids in preschool before COVID, and are they in school now, or are they at home with you? What does that look like?
So they were totally home with me 24/7, March through June, and at the same time, major life shifts, challenges. We had already planned on putting them in an outdoor preschool, and then the spots were there. So the outdoor preschool seemed like they went forward and did it. And they kind of showed us what precautions they were doing. And for me, everyone has their different comfort levels. Outside, I'm pretty cool. Like, stand 10 feet from a neighbor and talk. So they're in outdoor preschool right now, like around goats and chickens, and they get their temperature taken to come in, and the parents aren't allowed to come near. But it's amazing. Wow. Yeah.
So the kids get their temperature taken when they arrive every day?
It's the new normal. It's still masks and temperatures, and but it's outside, and they're thriving. I know that one point I realized something had to change when I also work for a really, really cool music school who makes music educational materials and songwriting things. And and I've done that job through this whole time. So I was trying to work from home while they were here, and I realized something had to change when my 3-year-old, then 2, he raised like a little Duplo phone to his ear, and he goes, Mom, say something to me. And I was like, hey, Isaac. He goes, don't interrupt me, I'm on the phone. And I went, oh no.
Learned behavior.
Yeah, it's like, I guess I'm saying that. He didn't say it in a mean way, so I have to say I could hear myself being like, on the phone. But then I was like, let's look into this outdoor preschool again. Yeah.
So this is interesting. You and I were talking just for a second before we went live about what it's like to be a musician as a woman, and I mean, we didn't phrase it that way exactly, but I think that this idea of motherhood and children is a huge piece that isn't talked about a lot, and how that impacts. I know that when I was in college, when I was right out of high school going into college, I sort of had I don't know where it came from, but a realization that the majority of music that I had listened to up to that point had been music created by men and performed by men. And, I had male voices in my head, literally through the speakers that I was listening to. And all my favorite bands, if I had talked about them, were probably men. And so I made a decision, I think it was sophomore year of college, that I was, from that point forward, for a significant amount of time, I was only going to listen to, or primarily going to listen to, music created by women. And it shifted my world, and it disrupted things a little bit. Even to this day, sometimes people say, oh, that band, or they talk about a male, very popular male performer from that era, and I don't necessarily really know their music because I was listening to other things. And this was in the Lilith Fair years, when there was like a lot of, the radio was, the music industry was really supporting women in music. And that sort of kind of, had another, I don't want to say backlash, but it kind of boomeranged, I guess, the other way. But I think that was the beginning of me thinking about women and how women disappear from the landscape of music. And one of the ways that it happens is because they're taking care of kids, or they're having kids, they're raising kids, and it becomes difficult. So I'm curious about your experience with that. How has motherhood changed your relationship with songwriting?
My goodness, it changed everything. Briefly, right as the countdown was happening, we were talking about how I haven't been as active in music, and that said, I know some amazing women who've done the motherhood music thing well and kept momentum, and I admire them, and I also do not comprehend how they do it, where they've still played. For me, my kids, I said, are 3 and 5, which means that for about the past 5 years, I'm finally really getting back in the swing of things this year. I was hanging on to music by a thread. 2018 remains the only year of my memory of my life that I didn't write a song. Because even when I was like 3 and 4, I'd write songs like "Grape juice is the best juice." Until 2018, I mean, it's catchy. Lots of songs about teddy bears. I was like 5 when I started writing about boys. But 2018, I did not complete a song, which to me was so momentous and intimidating. And I did feel like, wow, if I don't nurture this and keep it alive, I will lose it. And you talk about that in music, women do kind of disappear, and in lots of careers, right? That's a major career impact thing, is that we take 3 to 5 years off. Whatever industry we're in changes, and coming back is hard. So after that year of no complete songs, I kind of knew it was time to plant my flag. And that's when I actually went to Folk Alliance Montreal. I was like, well, I'll just go to this big party in Montreal because that'll be fun too. But I'll be surrounded by music. And I was so inspired. I knew that I needed to finish a song before I went there. Like, that was important, to be able to say, here's a new song. And then when I was there, I wrote a complete song. And I came back, and it just really got things, the wheels spinning again. And it's just kind of reminds me of getting to the gym. That was part of, not that I'm an exercise person, let me not misrepresent, but there's that whole act of getting there. Once you're there, it's fine, you do the things, it's just that motivation to get there. And I was running into that the past 5 years because I was emotionally, mentally, and physically exhausted. And just the way the dynamic in our house was, my kid's father is an entrepreneur. He was starting a business. He was working about 80-90 hours a week, which means I was really eat, sleep, kids, and I'd be like, I guess I could write a song. It's 10 o'clock at night. I had 3 hours, and I don't, so the energy wasn't there, and I just realized I have to make at least a little bit of space. And I still don't have a ton of space for music, but I'm making it, and I missed it so much. And when I do stuff like this, it kind of gets the juices flowing again. So I probably have like 3 weeks of extra music making because of this.
Oh.
So thanks.
Well, I mean, community is really important, and I think that was, really why I started this series. I didn't know what I was doing or why exactly I was doing it. I just knew that coming out of Folk Alliance in January and, gigs in February, I guess, and then March, the realization that I wasn't going to be around other songwriters for a long time. I wasn't going to even just like, not even like, hi, how are you? What's going on? Nobody on stage, that sort of thing. And that was why this series even started. There's something about just the energy of connecting with someone else who's, you know, thinking about that sort of thing, you know, listening to songs and engaging with it, with them. I think it keeps us in it, even if we don't sit down to write the song itself, you know?
Yeah.
So is it, how are you starting to make that space for songwriting again? Is it like a set time and place, or is it just like
I
a,
wish
a feeling?
when I mentioned some of those women who I think are doing such a great job, really keeping momentum with space and music, they do. They do have a set time. Life is still kind of unpredictable enough that my schedule keeps changing. So while it's not like every Wednesday at 7 or every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, although I aspire that, I've gotten The Artist's Way, like that's our book, right? So if we're talking about books, The Artist's Way is a book I keep revisiting. I've never actually done everything in there start to finish. Like no one who does. Amazing people do. But I read it several times. I've restarted it like 5 times. I kind of restarted it recently with a friend. And is that a playing at your place or mine?
It is. It's yes.
It's
coming right
amazing
through
because it feels like I'm there though.
Me too. I feel like I'm there too.
But The Artist's Way, one of the biggest thing is the morning pages, right? You're
Yes.
supposed to write 3 pages of whatever every morning, a brain dump, and it totally is for me. And then I like sometimes cheat for the last, half a page where I like draw a big cloud because I'm like, I gotta do things. But I've been doing the morning pages, and at least then I'm doing this goal setting on a micro level. And sometimes the goal just says like, play any music, and that's what it's been lately. And that does remind me of that whole gym comparison where you get to the gym, and I've done that to when I have gone to a gym. I'll be like, I'm gonna run for 10 minutes and I can go home. So I remember reading that in an article once. Like you just promise yourself you'll do the minimal thing, and then you always stay for more. And lately for music, it's been the same. It's been play anything. I'm not even gonna put pressure on myself to like work on that song, or I've got a recording that I'm trying to record some of the parts from home now, which, I feel a lot of pressure to do that. And sometimes it's like, nope, just do it. And then, of course, the last time I did that, I sat down and I recorded a vocal part for the album, and I worked on a chorus, and it all came. But I'm just making the goal so attainable that it happens.
Yeah. Well, it seems so simple, but sometimes the simple thing is the deepest wisdom, It's like, just that tiny step, and then you've gotten closer to the thing that you're, trying to do. And then the next day you're starting from that tiny step further along than you were the day before. Yeah, that's amazing and inspiring. I can relate to that feeling that you described from 2018 when you didn't write a song that year.
You left music for a while.
Yeah, and 10 years. And I did write a few songs during that time, but they were songs that they were accidental songs, I think, or I don't know, like they weren't like, oh, I'm going to write a song now. They were songs like, I don't know how they happened actually.
Were you like doing dishes and you were just like singing? You don't even realize it, and then you're singing to yourself, kind of stuff. Like how accidental?
I think they were accidental. The way I'm trying to think of, like when there's something that you deeply need, you're not conscious of it, and you just make that thing happen because you deeply needed that thing, and then. I think that was kind of how I came to those songs, because I just deeply needed to create a song during those, during those years every so often. But it was in 2018 that that's funny, that was the year that you didn't write a song. That was the year that I started writing songs again. And
we'll just pass it back and forth.
I know. We can share. And I definitely remember thinking that year that something similar to what you said, which was you felt like you were going to lose it, and I felt like I was not only going to lose it, but I had almost lost it. I felt like it was like this wispy thing that I was like it was like already trailing out of my fingers, and if I didn't catch it really fast, it was going to be gone entirely forever. It was a weird realization, and I think it was a true realization, and it was at that point that I sat down and wrote my first song, and then very quickly after that started writing a song a week as a complete discipline, because I was like,
amazing.
okay, this is going to be gone if I don't really like remember. It's funny what you you know, the things that you don't think that you would ever forget. But I felt like I was forgetting. I felt like I was forgetting how to read music, and I don't write down music on the staff when I'm writing songs on guitar, but I've been reading music since I was a kid. I'm sure you have too, as a piano player, right?
I'm not like
Were you
the
classically
best.
trained?
I'm not classically trained. No, I
Okay.
took piano lessons as a kid, and then I like kind of quit for a while. When I went to Berkeley, I went as a voice principal because I was just not
Oh.
gonna cut it. And
Oh.
I also have the hands of a 4-year-old boy. I can barely do an octave, so like anything I do, I need to modify. But it's not just the small hands. It's probably also, you know, my stick-to-itiveness with the piano lessons. But yeah, no. I can read music okay, and I taught piano for a while. Like I'll teach kids up till they're, you know,
Well,
14.
for me, reading music was like, I started reading music in 3rd grade. I played clarinet, which is all, you know, sheet music. And
Were you
I
able to
learned it.
transpose on the fly because you can play clarinet. Is
I
it a B flat instrument?
It is a B flat instrument. Good for
You're
you.
fancy. You're
Good for you.
fancy.
You know, but it became over time, you know, just like very, very, for me, music was a visual art more than sonic art, which
Oh, yeah.
I could unpack that, and I
Yeah.
had realizations about that years and years later. But in my you know, younger years, for sure, it was like reading music was like reading a book. It was so second nature to me. And yet in 2018, when I came back to music, I pulled out my old clarinet music, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I gotta like fully concentrate on trying to understand what I'm looking at. Yeah, I just want to say hi to a couple of people. We have
I know,
Mariana
it's fun. There's like a bunch of
Aranzi.
people over there. Somebody's asking for my grape juice song. It's not on Spotify, sorry. You pretty
Oh,
much
we
heard
have-
the entire song.
Well, we have a request. You might have to record that on the new album.
Yeah.
Mariana Aranzi, she writes children's music, so maybe she can, maybe you guys
Ooh.
can collaborate on that grape juice.
There we
song.
go. Or I will play it for my children. They're so into music.
And hello, Joshua Leclerc and Mark. I'm glad you like the sound of jets, because we'll get more of them over the course of this. So, Kate, I have an important question to ask you.
Okay, yes.
And you have already alluded to it a few times.
Okay.
What have you been reading lately?
So excellent question. So, I realized earlier as I'm all like, my life's in transition. Sometimes when you're vague, it's almost more awkward. So I'm like in a relationship ending phase. Like we'll know that, and this would have been clear in the song anyway. So the big book right now is Pema Chodron. I think I'm saying her name right. When Things Fall Apart, which has it's been my jam, and I finished that. So now I'm listening to her. She did a conference. It was her performing and speaking, so I've been listening to that. But she's in my head like 20 times a day right now. And I'm more of a digital reader, so I have screenshots, but should I read some?
Sure.
I've got a science nerd passage for later too. But the big thing that's been sticking with me, and it's kind of been groundbreaking for me, is she presents this whole principle of like, we like to act like everything's guaranteed, right? We're all on solid ground in this. And right now I'm like, oh, we have contracts, we have promises that's supposed to be for life. It's a guarantee. And it's not, right? And people change. People can't promise not to change. I've changed. So that topic of groundlessness, of how everything's shifting and you're supposed to make peace with it, has really been sticking with me. And in some ways it almost feels like it should seem nihilistic, right? Everything's going to change and everything's going to go away and you're going to build it. And it just, for some reason, it's the opposite. I don't know if that's how she's impacted you. It's this peaceful, beautiful thing, and it makes everything more precious, and it makes loss feel less catastrophic, because of course it's loss, because everything goes away. So here's a passage about that, and then I could talk about that for 45 minutes. But so yet, despite all our attachment, we know that the tide will inevitably come in and sweep the sandcastle away. The trick is to enjoy it fully, but without clinging, and when the time comes, let it dissolve back into the sea. And I mean, she's got so many, there's like 80 million passages like that, but it's just that theory of like, oh, we think we're on solid ground, but we're not. And then in the scheme of the pandemic, it works too, right? We liked to think that we were like in a real stable thing. We're in America, bad stuff doesn't happen here. I feel like everyone's feeling that right now, like, oh, it can. things can shift. They can shift fast. They can shift for the worst because everything's always changing. So I'm just applying this whole, like, it's not solid ground, but I'm just going to walk through it, whatever it is. It's just serving me every day.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a, we want to cling to something. We want to hold on to that, to a bar. We want to hold on to something, and I think that that's our natural state of wanting that, and yet the natural state also is that everything is, we have temporal lives on this ever-changing organic planet, and so how can we accept things to be as they are rather than as we wish them to be, and then not even accept it begrudgingly, but sort of accept it and see the beauty in it, appreciate it. Do you know the song by Jason Isbell, When We Were Vampires?
Oh, I feel like I've heard it, but not well enough to quote any of it to you. Yeah.
You reminded me of it when you were talking just now. It's a love song, but in it he says, maybe we get 40 years together, and one day you'll be gone and one day I'll be gone. And it's really grappling with that idea. He says that if we were vampires, there would be no compelling reason to really want to soak up the moment, because we would have this moment forever. But because we don't have it forever, that's the very nature of the fact that time moves forward and we move forward and change with it. Because of that, we can appreciate things. Otherwise it would be like, well, I'll see you next year. I'll see you in 100 years. Why do I need to see you right now?
It's true. It does make it more precious. There's something that I apply it to my kids too. Like everything's breaking, and like the toys and the block tower, and there is this, wow, we had it. It was great. It's gone. These Legos can't stay here forever. Although we do have certain Legos that have been in that corner of the room for like 4 months now. But eventually they need to come down, and I will apply Pema Chodron to that. Like, everything must change, including Legos.
We still in our household cannot say the word shampoochi.
Oh, please explain.
Because shampoochi was a shower toy. I think that it was like a little bathtub kind of thing with I don't know. It was plastic, it was pink, it was blue, it was the colors of plastic children's toys for baths. And my younger stepdaughter, when she was, I don't know how old, maybe around 10, I don't know, this thing was still in the bath. She hadn't taken a bath in years, and not only that, but it was definitely mildewy.
Disgusting,
and,
I'm sure.
Yes, terrible. And so I won't say who exactly threw it away, because this video will be on record. But I will just say that there were so many tears. It was a deluge. It was just like she was tremendously sad about the loss of this toy that she hadn't even engaged with in a long, long time, but that, and actually I don't even know how she learned that it was gone. It had already been gone for quite some time by the time she noticed that it wasn't there, so.
Yeah, that's universal though. I feel like the attachment to the old toy. One time, I'm one of 5 kids, and my younger sister had done something to make me angry. In fact, this is a vivid memory, so I can say she blew snot on me. And she had this like dilapidated plastic Mickey Mouse playhouse. She was probably like 10 at the time, and she hadn't played in it since she was 4, and it was that faded plastic color where red is now pink and white is now gray. And she and my mom had a disagreement days before of like, Mom's like, I think it's time. And she's like, no, it's like represents my childhood. Well, I got so mad I locked her in the garage, and I took it and I like put it in a tree and then dropped it out of the tree. I used like a rope to like make a pulley system, as siblings have these very spelled out revenge things. And then like open the garage door so she could see it as the Mickey Mouse playhouse. Kind of broke. It was terrible. I was terrible. I'm not a terrible person, but it was also kind of hilarious, But yeah, there's something about that toy that's so outgrown, but we won't give up. And in fact, this is not a song I'm going to sing today because I have not played it since I recorded in March. But a song I wrote in my album is this, it's called But We Can't. So we want to keep it, but we can't. And it was kind of inspired by my kids. We had this Tupperware container of popped balloons because we were just, it was too much to throw them away, you know? And all these things we try and keep. We're really into bugs, and they all die so quickly. And all these things that are just disappearing so fast, and as kids, every one of those is this tragedy. So we are grieving something every day. It was just a song about that, but up tempo with snaps.
Oh, someone here is asking if you will one day play the Little Mermaid song again.
Gosh. So hi, Scott. Hi. Miss you, friend. Yeah, probably. Yeah, my kids are in college. There's part of it. I haven't played that song. I used to do college gigs, and I had this raunchy parody of Little Mermaid song that I wrote with Stacy Baker. Do you remember her from Berklee College of Music? She's fabulous.
I remember the song, too.
Oh, you do? Okay. So I used to play it at all the college gigs, and at one point it just became my, like, crutch, where I'm like, I need some laughs now. So I just kind of decided I had outgrown it. But maybe at some point, especially if it's like a longer house concert, maybe, Scott, maybe I'll break it back out. Yeah, but I guess when my kids are a little bit older.
Calling all future house concert hosts. Ding, ding, ding.
There you go. You can hear the dirty Little Mermaid song, and then I'll just censor it for my children. Although, actually, it's fine, because we refer to body parts by their actual name in this household, as you should. So they'll get it.
Wow. So grief and the evils of siblings and and the Little Mermaid.
Transitions, relationship ending. Yeah. So much.
So you mentioned that you were reading something else as well.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I have to tell everyone, I have to confess that I watched your last episode because I wanted to, like, get the feel, and now I'm a lifelong fan. This show was amazing. So, but you guys were so well spoken and so well read, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've mainly been, like, listening to Agatha Christie audiobooks as a form of escape for, like, the past year. I'm like, I was an old-timey murderer with an English accent. But
anything to lift your spirits.
Yeah, I was realizing, I was like, books are either escape or sometimes they're inspiration, so that's when things fall apart. And sometimes it's, information. So my information book, which I always come back to, I haven't read it cover to cover in forever, but that would be Bill Bryson's Short History of Nearly Everything, which is, if people are familiar with my songs, every album has at least one or two, like, weird science-y inspired song. It's like a science-y relationship song. And that's all that Bill Bryson stuff, where once upon a time, even in college, I was trying to read Stephen Hawking, and it just stressed me out too much, because I'd be like, oh, the sun's gonna burn out, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be long dead before then. I'm like, I'm gonna die, and it'd be this terrible thing, which I could deal with better now that I'm in the, Pema Chodron. Everything dies. But I find them stressful. But for some reason, the Bill Bryson book, which still handled, things from the scope of space, or there's like a giant super volcano under Yellowstone, which is stressful too. But it's 2020. Anything can happen. But that book just did it in this way with humor and approachability that I didn't find in the Stephen Hawking books. And actually, I have another passage. Can I just, read more book passages?
I just want to say that I don't think Stephen Hawking is known for his humor. But Bill Bryson very much is. We have a
valid
nice
point.
We have a nice collection of his books as well.
I need to read. I would love some book recommendations. I read what is it? He did an autobiography. Is that the Thunderbolt Kid one? I read it, but I already forgot it, so I can reread it. But I should read more of him because he's amazing. But one of the things that impacted me most from that book and did directly inspire a song was how he made the point of it's stressful. Think about all the close calls with asteroids or things that could happen, or super volcanoes, but actually how amazing that the events that have happened led here. So the passage is, you have also been extremely, make that miraculously, fortunate in your personal ancestry. Consider the fact that for 3.8 billion years, a period of time older than the Earth's mountains and rivers and oceans, every one of your forebears on both sides has been attractive enough to find a mate, healthy enough to reproduce, and sufficiently blessed by fate and circumstances to live long enough to do so. Not one of your pertinent ancestors was squashed, devoured, drowned, starved, stuck fast, untimely wounded, or otherwise deflected from life's quest of delivering a tiny charge of genetic material to the right partner at the right moment to perpetuate the only possible sequence of hereditary combinations that could result, eventually, astoundingly, and all too briefly, in you. Which, I remember reading that and just doing a slow clap or something, because that's beautiful, right? It's taking this
Yeah.
thing that could be dark, like, oh, the bad stuff could happen, and say,
Yeah.
wow, and how amazing that we made it. So my last album, which came out just before Klim was born, the title track is called 100 Million Years. And that one did try and tell the love story, starting like Big Bang. Look at all these things that had happened, and my mom had to meet my dad. We had, continents dividing. And, what kind of miracle is it that I met you? And at the time, it was written as a love song, and certainly if you're in love, you can still listen to it as a love song. But I was thinking about it today and how the way I hear my own songs change depending on where I'm at my life. And now that song to me is so much about my kids, all the things that led to me to meet them. But when I get real meta, it's about you, and it's about the internet strangers, and it's about like the guy at the Starbucks drive-through. Like, what a miracle that I've met you today, human being that I didn't know before. Like, everything that happens is a miracle that took so much backstory to get to. So that inspired that song, but it also kind of shows up in other songs. When I sing later, it kind of shows up a little bit in that song too.
I love it. Beautiful. And there's something about that reminds me of Elizabeth Gilbert has a magnificent novel called The Signature of All Things. Are you familiar with that book?
I'm not, but again, I need more book recs. I was getting into Eat, Pray, Love, and then it just got a little too pray-y for me, and I was like, I loved the eating. It just lost me after the eating. So
let's go back to Italy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this one's not a it's not a memoir, and it's also not anyway, it's a novel, and as a science lover, you might appreciate it, especially because it has to do with botany, and it's a fictional imagining of this woman, Alma Whitaker, who lived, I think she was born in the year 1800, and in Philadelphia, and it tells the backstory of her, like the first chapter, I think, is the history of her father, because it's like, well, Alma was born, but she's too young for anything interesting to happen in her life, so let me tell you about her dad first, and it kind of goes back into her parents. But she travels over the course of the book from Philadelphia to Tahiti and then to Amsterdam, and she is a botanist, and she develops or discovers basically the evolutionary theory at the same time that Darwin does, essentially. And I think it's a fascinating book. I've been through it a few times, but one of the things that happens is that when she gets to Tahiti, she learns this tradition that they have, that the people had that she met, who were like, when they were trying to do something very difficult, they would conjure up in their minds and verbalize it all the ancestry that comes before them that makes it possible for them to do the thing that they're trying to do. Like, I am, Arielle, my father was an architect who designed great homes, and my mother was a this, and they were children of these people, and it goes back and back and back generations. And that makes me think of what you're talking about right here, sort of like the all of the strengths that and the good fortune, when we look at things that way, that brought you to this world. And that
That's
stranger,
amazing.
that internet stranger that you
The
mentioned.
internet strangers. Hi, internet strangers. That makes me think of two things. One, for some reason, it makes me think of Moana. Like, it just that for whatever reason, about like ancestors, like my father, And then it also makes me think of, so I have to say, life in transition, things ending. I've got such an amazing support network. I'm just really celebrating between my musician friends, yourself included, and an amazing community of people who've listened to my music and have become friends through that. And then also some great professional help too. And I've got like a super, I don't even want to call her a counselor. I really like to call her like a sensei, because I think she's probably like a very wise alien. Not really. I don't believe in aliens. But anyway, she was talking about something the other day, and it appeals to my like science nerd side, where she was talking about how they are studying now, even just like how things that happen in the past and trauma, they're actually studying the epigenetics of that, of just how that carries through in generations, like in a very science-based way. And my next book, that's going to be like an info book, is going to be about epigenetics and just how actual experiences can impact people through generations. Yeah.
That idea of epigenetics actually was really consoling to me a number of years ago when I first became a stepmom, and I was going through deep grief about not having my own biological children, and I was trying to find some resolution in my mind, and it took me through a lot of research and a lot of just a whole journey about it. This is what I was not doing. This is what I was doing while I was not playing music.
Yeah.
And then I stumbled upon the idea of epigenetics and started to realize that even the people who it's not just it's not just our
gene
parents,
donors.
right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like step parents and all the people who are significant in your life have an impact on you, and you pass that on. And so it just it just changed
And
the
not
way
just through
that I
nurture,
thought about
through
that.
actual physical changes.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Wow.
You got so
So
much more
cool.
power than you thought, right? Epigenetics. The first time I started hearing about epigenetics was maybe there was, a podcast long ago, but for me it was a source of stress where I was having an argument with a partner at that time about future children who weren't even on the horizon yet, but if he didn't quit smoking, the epigenetics would be that those children's children might be less fertile or something. So yeah, epigenetics, you can go deep down that wormhole. I don't necessarily recommend it. Just go down the empowering route that we were talking about.
We could see everything from the upside, the downside, the upside, the downside. I want to share I want to share two little passages that relate. And these will relate to the song that I'll play at the very end. So there was a Swedish writer by the name of Thomas Tranströmer, and he was a poet, and this is a little piece from his prose poem, The Blue House. This is just the very, very end of it. He says, above the bed there hangs an amateur painting representing a ship with 17 sails, rough sea, and a wind that the gilded frame cannot subdue. It is always so early in here. It is before the crossroads, before the irrevocable choices. I am grateful for this life, and yet I miss the alternatives. All sketches wish to be real. A motor far out on the water extends the horizon of the summer night. Both joy and sorrow swell in the magnifying glass of the dew. We do not actually know it, but we sense it. Our life has a sister vessel which plies an entirely different route, while the sun burns behind the islands. And so this idea of the sister vessel of our lives, the lives that we haven't lived, was the idea behind Cheryl Strait's answer. Cheryl Strait wrote the book, the memoir Wild, about her trip on the Pacific Crest Trail. And she also used to have an advice column. She has now a new advice column, and she went by Dear Sugar. And at some point in time, she published a book, Tiny Beautiful Things, Advice on Love and Life from Dear Sugar. And this particular piece of advice was for a man who was trying to decide whether to have kids or not have kids. And
it's not a major decision. No, I'm just kidding.
no, not a, and so I was curious about how she answered this question, and her answer to it. So this, she titled this answer, which really is a personal essay. She titled it "The Ghost Ship That Didn't Carry Us," and it was influenced by this poem by Thomas Tranströmer. I think that sometimes the connection here gets a little weird. I think something funny happened, but hopefully I'm back on. So she says, let's see here. So there you are on the floor, your gigantic white piece of paper with things written all over it like a ship's sail. And maybe you don't have clarity still. Maybe you don't know what to do, and you feel something, don't you? The sketches of your real life and your sister life are right there before you, and you get to decide what to do. One is the life you'll have, the other is the one you won't. Switch them around in your head and see how it feels. Which affects you on a visceral level? Which won't let you go? Which is ruled by fear? Which is ruled by desire? Which makes you want to close your eyes and jump, and which makes you want to turn and run? And so I just love the idea of this poem inspiring this essay, and then
Yeah.
this song that I'm going to play at the end was inspired by both of those things. So I wanted to share them.
Yeah. No, I love there's this whole, well, it makes me think of two things. It makes me think of this one weird thought that's always come into my brain since I was a kid, which at some point I was in like 3rd grade, and I was kind of weird then too. Where anytime something would almost happen but not happen, I would imagine like an alternate timeline where that thing happened. Somebody told me there's kind of like a movie like that. And I'd be like, almost fell off the swing. I'm like, somewhere there's like an alternate parallel, dimension where I did fall off the swing. So that always pops into my head. But also it's just, for me right now, resonating with the idea of still coming back to that there's really actually no solid ground, nothing's guaranteed. And I find myself getting caught in and people are helping coach me out of that, this like binary mindset. My life was going to be this happily ever after, or my life was going to be that lonely and Cheetos and cats, and I'm allergic to cats. It's always this either or. There's this life or one alternate life, when really you look around and there's actually, for that poem, I've been imagining like so many ships.
So many
It's not
ships, like a whole fleet.
A whole fleet, and we didn't miss the one. It wasn't missed.
Yeah.
It's just the one we're on right now isn't the one we thought we'd be on, and it might not be the one we're on next month.
Yeah.
But look at the view,
Yeah.
At least we're on the ocean.
Yeah. I love it. I'm hoping that you'll play a song for us.
Yeah, okay. I'm hoping you can't hear my stomach growling, because I should have planned my meal timing better. So I should say, so right before everything stopped, I started working on an album, and I'm so excited. And as I mentioned kind of earlier, I'm trying to do what I can from home and get motivated for that. But this is a song from that. And I will say, kind of chronologically, you can see my life start to unfold in unexpected ways, and relationships ending. This is not about a relationship ending. It's actually kind of more just about, sometimes we'll get and we're like, hey, it's not all binary. It's not all ending in this or good or bad. Sometimes it's just like, we're just humans trying to do what we can, and this is a song about that. But it also still has a little bit of that Bill Bryson book in it, because I do find myself often comparing whatever is happening in my life to like the scale of the entire universe. Like, this is a thing. This is one really bad year in a history of 14 billion years and like an infinite universe. And sometimes I try and get perspective from it. It doesn't usually give me perspective like this is nothing, but at least it gives me kind of a new angle to look at it from. But there is a line in the song that kind of alludes to that too. Also goes really high, which will be brave with that reverb. Sometimes when you look at me, your eyes still flash the way they did the first time. Sometimes when I look at you, I think how it's more good than bad. It's a special kind of tragedy that you should say you'll never love me the way I'm wanting, and ask if I can live with that. Sometimes the setting of the sun feels like God magic. Sometimes I tell myself it's nothing but the motion of the earth. Sometimes I think that we've become, it's all so grand and tragic. And there are days it's just too sky again. Think of you and I again. We're just a little flicker in the universe. So why does it feel so big? Why does it feel so big? When we look at what we thought we'd be, it was catching stars and building empires. Had visions of the two of us, with dirt in our hair and with tools in our hands. Oh, but dreams turn into strategy, and ours was to divide and conquer. So now I watch your buildings rise while I stay home and I tend the land. Sometimes the setting of the sun feels like God and magic. Sometimes I tell myself it's nothing but the motion of the earth. Sometimes the thing that we become, it's all so grand and tragic. And there are days it's just two human beings making something work. Making something work. And if you ask me if I'm happy, I'm mostly happy but alone. And if I ask you if you're happy, you say just look how high my buildings have grown. And I wonder when you're sleeping, on the nights when you come home, is it even the same dream now? Are we dreaming the same dream? Sometimes the setting of the sun feels like God and magic. Sometimes I tell myself it's nothing but the motion of the earth. Sometimes the thing that we become, it's all so grand and tragic. And there are days it's just two human beings making something work. So I look up at the sky again, think of you and I again. We're just a little flicker in the universe. So why does it feel so big? Why does it feel so big? Why does it feel so big, so big, so big? Why does it feel so big? Why does it feel so big? Yay, thanks. And I have to say, so I've never actually ever played that for anyone other than in the studio before, but I'm glad it was for you.
Oh, I'm glad it was for me too, and all of us. So is that going on the new album?
It is.
Good.
It's all
Oh.
pretty with other people doing cool things. And I have to
so
say, at one
glad.
point, Andrew Delaney commented on here after Moana, and he's the one, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's an extraordinary songwriter in his own right, but he produced it, and it's just, sometimes you're able to capture that feeling or that magic, and he was able to do that, so I'm excited.
I think that you and Andrew played a showcase together at Folk Alliance, right?
Yeah, we did.
And,
that was fun.
Was
The Big Orange Tart Broom.
was Lisa Bastoni in that one?
I
In
did
that
a showcase with
showcase?
her, and I think she's amazing too. So that might have been with, I think that was with her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a great showcase.
Oh, so many
Yeah,
friends.
It was wonderful. We should get Andrew Delaney on here.
You
on
should,
the
if
show.
you want to just laugh for an hour straight.
But I'm so glad to hear that you're recording that song, actually, because I want to hear it again. So that's the nice thing about recordings. I mean, that's the funny thing about it. We were talking about the temporal nature of being human, and music is like the essence of that in
Yeah.
art form. It's just like it's here and then gone, and
It's
we
different
get,
every time. Like that time
Yeah.
had a couple chords that I'll never play again, to tell the truth.
But that's what's so great about live performance too, is that you're right, it's different every time, and then we go into the studio and we nail it down, and people hear the recorded version of it, and they can kind of we as listeners can fall into deeper levels of it in that way of listening over and over, and just hearing new things in it. But then to hear it live is like whatever comes through your ears and whatever your heart can capture in that performance as a listener, whatever your heart can capture, and now it's gone, you know.
Yeah. Will you do that for me right now?
Yeah, I will.
Will you share a live moment?
So this is a song that I wrote this year, and it's called Ghost Ships, inspired by the readings that I gave. I've been playing these new songs, and I have not sat down with my I have been, you know how it is, you have song ideas, you might record, standing in your kitchen into your cell phone, and maybe one day you're sitting at your instrument and you have song ideas and you play those ideas, but it's a different thing to actually sit down and complete the song, to really sit down and engage with it for a few hours and write it. And I have not done that last version during this pandemic. It's an interesting realization that I've been sort of turning around in my mind, that I have not done that. However, I have been also doing a lot of other creative things. So in any case, one of the nice things about these live performances, these live streams, is that the songs that I did write in the first few months of the year, I've been playing them, and they've been evolving over time a little bit, as they do when you perform in front of an audience.
Sometimes you don't know what doesn't work until you play it with a little bit of pressure. When you play knowing someone's listening, and that line that you thought was good enough, or suddenly it's not.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. So this song, I was playing it today, and I was thinking, I still feel like it's in flux a little bit. It hasn't quite decided certain things, but I wanted to play it today also because you and I know each other from Boston originally, and this song has memories of those Boston years. We talked forever about a blue house in a magazine, the orange flames of maple trees in fall. We'd fix the cellar, piano in the living room, a bookcase and curtains in the hall. I made a scrapbook in my mind of the dress I'd wear, our wedding pie. Ooh, sailing on ghost ships, out to sea on ghost ships, things we never heard did. Unlived lives on ghost ships, still afloat on ghost ships, lives we'll never live. Maybe winter, the endless digging out from snow, the last nor'easter froze us to the core. Or maybe youth, we hadn't lived enough to see the way the flame of love can leap and leave. By summer we were through, no maple trees, no house of blue. Ooh, sailing on ghost ships, out to sea on ghost ships, things we never heard did. lives on ghost ships, still afloat on ghost ships. The lives will never live. Now and then I hear some news of you. Looks like somehow we both made it to the other coast. Do you believe in ghosts? Sailing on ghost ships, out to sea on ghost ships, things we never heard it. Unlived lives on ghost ships, still afloat on ghost ships, lives we'll never live. Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in ghosts?
Yay! So fun to get to hear the context of what you read, and what that person read, and how it turns into a song. And it's interesting too how in a song it hits me in a totally different way than the readings did. I think because music gets to me better than any other medium, and we always apply it through the lens of our whole life. And I feel like maybe I've acted like I have my act together a little more than I do in here, where I'm like, and I just come back to the impermanence of life. I'm like, oh no, I forget that 80 times a day, and I'm just telling you what I remind myself, because I spend half the day also, and that song has so much. It doesn't have regret in it, but it's about regret. I don't because but I do spend time thinking about things I could have done or the life I could have lived, and that's where I kind of tell myself my speeches. But just something about that life we could have lived, as intelligent beings, or just like humans with like evolved brains. Like we just hang out in that zone of all the what could have been for so long.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about, I've been teaching yoga now for a while, and they say it's a body, mind, spirit practice, and I have spent a lot of time thinking about the body as the physical yoga practice, and the spirit, the emotional state, and mindset and things like that. But very recently I've started dwelling more on the mind part of it. I feel like for most of my life I engaged, or for a lot of my earlier life until I found yoga, I found it 20 years ago, but really until I started really getting deeply into my practice, I didn't pay that much attention to my body in terms of, like, I had an adversarial relationship with my body, and so it was through the yoga practice that I started to kind of heal that piece of myself, and so I found it kind of a fascinating element. And before that, I had been I think I had just kind of prioritized the intellect, right, when I was younger. And so when I came to yoga, I kind of like, oh, what are these other things? The body and the spirit, that's really interesting. But recently I've been like coming back to the mind and thinking about imagination and how much we think about those other ships, those other lives, those other possibilities, and how these are really like, how it's such a powerful part of our experience as humans to constantly be envisioning the other paths that we might take, or the other paths that we should have taken, or the other paths we wish someone else had taken, or like imagining all these multiple layers upon layers of, things that both happened, and then infinitely more versions that never happened and never will happen. So,
and there's certainly a place for that, obviously. Like, we love stories, but there is something in human nature of adding stories to things, and I've got someone good in my life right now who's reminding me of like I'm adding a lot of extra narrative to things.
Yeah.
And then this is going to happen, and then this person must be doing it because of that and this. And really, like, what's real? I'm like, what's real is like the neighbor's vines are overgrown on our fence. You know?
Right,
And it's just
yeah.
like, what's the actual one thing?
Yeah. Yeah, what's real? Hang the screen on the door because the mosquitoes are coming in. That was a very real thing for me earlier this summer.
Sometimes we add this justice aspect to things of like, but it's not fair, and their tree fell in our swing set last year too, and you know, their yard is out of control, I will say. It's created extra conflict.
Just send them this. Just send them this video. They'll
Yeah,
understand.
you know, we sometimes like to tie it to whatever bigger injustices we just can't handle at that moment, like one
Yeah.
little event to make someone our enemy, or
Yeah.
we're storytellers.
We are storytellers, and hence, here we go. I'm gonna put the
tie it all back in.
Yeah, there we go. Bing, bing, bing. Tones and Tunes. Kate, thank you so much for being my
Thank
guest
you.
today. This was such a pleasure
So fun. Yeah.
talk
like
with
I said,
you.
I'm gonna watch again, and it looks like Andrew's on board, so apparently
Yay,
I'll watch
Andrew.
when he's on too. But thank you for doing this. It's been amazing.
Awesome. Everybody, I just want to say, please go find Kate's music on Spotify or wherever you love listening to music. She's got fantastic songs, and I know that she's going to be part of your regular
And
soundtrack.
likewise about you, and your new album's phenomenal. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Kate. Do you have any shows coming up, by the way? Any live stream shows?
You know what I do actually? Passim's doing an online campfire festival again, so I will get it updated on my website. Nudge, thank you. But on Saturday, the Saturday of Labor Day weekend, you can catch me live through
Perfect.
Passim.
So there you go, everybody. And Kate, I'll say goodbye to you in the green room, and I'll just
Oh, yay.
say goodbye to everybody else here.
Bye, folks.
Thank you all for being here for the 17th episode of Tomes and Tunes. Next week, week 18. Can't wait to see you. Same time, same place, every Thursday. And I hope that you have a wonderful week if I don't see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is my 21st week of my Arielle's Acoustic Happy Hour, which I do every Friday evening at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. So hope to see you there or next week for Tomes and Tunes. And go listen to Kate's music. Thank you for being here, and stay safe and sound.